Buenos días, estudiantes. Hoy día vamos a hablar de negative commands, o en español, mandatos negativos. Negative commands, well, negative means no. So negative commands tell someone to not to do something. No duermas. Don't sleep en mi clase. The implied, not the written subject, is to, you. I'm talking to you when I give you a command. No duermas. No hables en clase. Don't talk in class. It's a negative command. Again, saying what not to do. How do you form a negative command, Senorita McNally? Funny you should ask. Step 1. Conjugate to box 1. It could be an AR verb, an ER verb, an IR verb, a stem changing verb, a go verb. It does not matter. It conjugates to box 1. Then you're going to take off the O. Because remember, in box 1, no matter what kind of verb it is, it goes to an O. And then you're going to add the opposite box 2. Opposite box 2. Senorita McNally, what is that? Well, if you think about box 2, AR verbs go to AS, and ER and IR verbs go to ES. So what you're going to do is you're going to flip them. And ER and IR verbs are going to get an AS. That's the opposite. That's not what they would normally get. And AR verbs are going to get an ES. They get the opposite. They would normally get AS, but we're giving a command, we flip it. So for example, no comas en clase. Don't eat in class. Remember Pepe? And no tomes cerveza. Don't you drink beer. You're not old enough yet. No tomes cerveza. So those are your steps 1, 2, and 3. Make sure you wrote those down. Practicamos. How does that work? Well, bailar is an AR verb. I conjugate it to box 1. I get bailo. And then I take off the O. And then I add my opposite box 2 ending. I add an ES. It's an AR verb, but I don't want AS. I want the opposite. So I add ES. And then I put no in front. No bailes. Don't dance. No bailes en la clase. Salir is an IR verb, but it's also a go verb. Go verbs, remember those? So I go to box 1, which is salgo. I don't have to do anything special. I just go to box 1. I take off my O, and it's an IR verb. So normally it would be ES in box 2, but I want the opposite. So I put AS, salgas. No salgas. Don't leave. Don't go out. Okay? Now we have ponerse. Ponerse is also a go verb. So what's it going to be? It's going to be pongo. Then I take off my O, and I add my opposite box 2. It's an ER verb, so I'm going to add AS. Now, it's also reflexive. So when I put my no in front, I'm then going to add my reflexive. Because remember, the subject is to, so I'm going to end up with no te pongas mi chaqueta. Don't put on my jacket. No te pongas. So we get the no, then that reflexive pronoun, and then the command. No te pongas. Now for vestirse, can you see me? Am I still on board? For vestirse, it's a stem changer, but it's not a go verb. So you're going to have visto, and then you're going to take off the O, and you're going to get vistas, because it's an IR verb. I want the opposite ending. And then my se is going to change to te, because you're the subject. It goes to box 2, and I'm going to end up with no te vistas lentamente, which means don't get dressed slowly. All right? So here we have it. You go to box 1, take off the O, add the opposite box 2, and then if it's reflexive, the reflexive pronoun goes in front of the command. So these are 4 examples of regular commands, negative commands, what not to do. You should write at least 2 of these down. And then we have a few irregulars. Irregulars that you're going to see a lot are car, gar, zar verbs. So say it with me, car, gar, zar. So car, gar, zar verbs are verbs that literally end in car, gar, or zar. There's a lot of them. There's more of them than you think, and you'll be learning more throughout your Spanish careers. But what happens is the sound changes. So if I were going to do sacar and follow my steps, I would get saco. All right, that still sounds right, saco. But then when I add the opposite box 2, I get saces. Saces What is saces? It doesn't sound at all like sacar. Saces, sacar. So we want to preserve the sound. And in order to preserve the sound, we have to add a QU to take the place of the C. So we end up with no sa case with a QUES here. I still added my opposite box too, right? Because it's an AR verb, it gets ES, but I have to change the consonant to keep the sound strong. Gar's the same thing. Llegar goes to llego, but when I add the opposite box twinning, it becomes yejes, and the G gets soft. We can't have a soft G because llegar has a strong G. So we have to add a U, and you get no llegues. Almorzar is a zar verb. Almuerzo, I take off my O, and I add the ES, and I get almuerces. All right? And it just doesn't, the Z is never before a C in Spanish. So you're going to end up with no almuerces sola. Don't eat alone. This one's not as strong of a difference as these two are, and honestly, for most Americans, we can't really hear it. But you should know that the zar goes to CES. So again, car, gar, zar verbs. Any verb, every verb that ends in car, gar, or zar will change the same way. So you need to go ahead and start memorizing these stem changes, or these spelling changes right now. Finally, there are 3 irregulars in the negative commands. Remember, in affirmative commands, there was 9 irregulars. In the negative commands, there's only 3. They're very easy, and they're the verbs that are always funky. So we have ir becomes no vayas. Now remember, it's voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. So no vayas isn't that far off from what we already know. And then ser is no seas, don't be. No seas tonto, like don't be silly, all right? Now, how do we remember it? You memorize it. Put it on your flashcard, start studying now. My last one is dar. Dar's to give no des. So there you go. Those are your irregulars for your negative commands, telling someone what not to do. Gracias por mirando. Practicamos ahora y disfruta. Chao.